I'm Robyn Milstead. I'm from LK Chartered Accountants, and we're here today to talk about MTD, everybody's favourite subject. I set up a MTD therapy group back in February, and that's why I'm talking about MTD every day at the moment. And we're going to do some myth busting for you, hopefully get some information that you haven't already heard out. And I'd like to introduce you to my friend Tom, who has been very active in the group too. He's going to tell you a bit about himself too.
Yeah, so my name's Tom. I've been an accountant for 16 years. I own the practice JP Blackmoor down in Devon. I absolutely love this MTD therapy group. It's been a huge help, really informative. But one of the things that we keep finding is that in webinars and on published documentation, what people are saying is fact isn't actually always fact. So it's a really good opportunity today for us to do some myth busting. I'm really looking forward to getting into it. So I think, Robyn, I've got my first question for you, really, which is, what is making tax digital and why is it here?
Sure. So it's a great question, an important one. It is a government initiative from HMRC. It's aimed at modernizing the tax system, and it's essentially trying to encourage people to get onto software or digital types of record keeping. People will need to have some kind of software that is compatible with MTD, trying to move people away from the thought of having a box of receipts or
Yeah.
a physical ledger to write down their income and expenses in the year. And it's being sold to us as an initiative that will close the tax gap, whether or not I think that's true and you think that's true, maybe we'll come on to later.
So obviously this is going to have a massive impact. I think is it 780,000 individuals from April 26 and then 970,000 individuals from 27. So what are the main benefits of doing MTD and being registered for MTD? I agree. I don't really think anybody's really been able to confirm that yet. Have you? I don't recall seeing it in the revenue text or in any of their webinars where they've actually really gone into detail about the benefits for small businesses.
Sure.
Um,
So I think on this one, I'm always plain to say that there will be a very small number, in my opinion, that will benefit from going on to some kind of software or some kind of digital record keeping. There are a few people out there that will benefit from having more up-to-date information on their business, and who will like the types of software that's out there that will benefit. And don't forget that they are generally paid for options. So they may benefit from those paid for options, but in the most part, I'm struggling to see
yeah,
the real benefits for my clients, and for us as an industry,
yeah.
really.
I think for me, it's all down to choice. We've got clients who will benefit from having software, but that should be their choice. They should choose to invest in the software and invest in accountants or bookkeepers before they make that decision, because the amount of clients I've got where they genuinely are having no benefit to this, they aren't going to change their business model, they aren't going to review their profitability, their cash flow forecasting, everything
And
like
so I
that.
find they don't need to.
They don't
That's the
know.
point, is that it's not just that they don't want to, is there's actually no material need
Exactly.
for some people to have to make their books up quarterly. Landlords are an excellent example of that.
Yes.
Most of the
Yeah.
time, their income and expenses are fairly linear, and they have a good idea of what kind of profit they're making on their property throughout the year without the need to actually look at the figures quarterly.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's where it can be difficult. But we have some questions for each other today,
We do.
don't we? We're going to
Yes.
play a game. We're going to play true or false.
Yeah.
And
On the spot now. Can't get any wrong.
well, we'll see. And if we do get any wrong, we can sort each other out,
Yeah.
can't we? So that's fine. So at home, play along, see if you get the answers, and that'll be a really good indication of how prepared you are for MTD come
Right.
April 26. So I've got the first question. The first question is, you'll need to make quarterly submissions if your profit from self-employment or rental is over £50,000. What do you think about that?
That's a false one. And this is one that's been confusing a lot of people, hasn't it? Because it isn't about profit, it's about turnover. And there's a big difference in the two there, isn't it? So your turnover is like your raised sales, essentially your invoice value, and your profit is after you've deducted expenses. And that is catching a lot of people out, I think. And even now, we've seen it in a few of the agent ones where that is still being queried, which
It's
you'd
it's
think the revenue would have done enough education now that that's out there. I still don't think it
I
is.
think that's one of those problems actually that we've seen some of the communication from the revenue talk about income.
Yeah,
That's not particularly helpful, is it? Is it? Because many
no,
people will feel that their income is the amount that they've got in their pocket at the end of the
correct.
day,
Yeah,
whereas actually what we're looking at here is gross rental and looking at turnover,
yeah,
different
exactly.
to what most people would perceive as income. Good, well done.
Yeah,
So that one was false. I've got another one for you.
good, good. Far
Are you
away.
ready? So the second one is I need to report all my income on my quarterly submissions.
So again, that isn't quite right. So you're just going to have to do your self-employment and your rental income on the quarterly updates. So your interest, your dividends, your PAYE, partnership income, all of that, that's going to be included at the end of year submission. So for MTD purposes, it is only about your self-employment and your rental income.
Which is good,
Oh,
isn't it?
massively, yeah. Because I think
It's good.
trying to pull it all together through your PAYE and your interest and everything. And have the revenue talked about the fact that they're going to do tax estimates
They
through the
have,
year
yeah.
using this information?
Yeah, that's right. That might be the sticky point here, mightn't it? When you've got lots of different types of income, and those estimates are only going to look at what's on your quarterly updates, you may have a bit of a mismatch between the two.
Yeah,
It might cause confusion. I think it will cause some confusion there.
definitely.
Okay, you've done well so far. I've got one more for you. So the maximum number of quarterly submissions would be three a quarter.
So that again, that isn't entirely true. So for your self-employment and your rental income, it's on each source of income. So if you've only got one self-employment income, you're going to do your quarterly updates throughout the year and then you do your end of year submission. But if you've got two self-employment and a rental income, you've got to do one for each of those sources of income per quarter. And I think, Robyn, wasn't it your letter that you sent to MPs? We identified that some clients are going to have to do at least 13 submissions a year. And for those that VAT registered, it's up to 17 in some instances.
Exactly. Yeah, going from five if you're VAT registered
Yeah.
to 17 submissions.
Oh, it's
I
unreal.
posted a LinkedIn post recently talking about how that can affect agents if you have 300 clients split equally through. It goes from 300 submissions to 1,900 submissions if you have an equal split of people that have, say, one
Yeah.
self-employment, one of a UK rental business, and then maybe one of each. So an incredible amount of
Oh,
admin.
yeah. Yeah. I don't think we've talked about it really yet, but the resources that practices are going to need is unreal. I mean, we're all going to have to start recruiting at the school gates for bookkeepers, aren't we? Quite frankly,
If we can,
if
if
we
we can.
can.
Reality is, many of us don't have that luxury, do we?
Exactly. Yeah,
To
that's
just
right.
go and find someone else for work that many of my clients don't want me to do. They
No.
want to try and handle this themselves. And So I haven't got that option of
No.
recruiting anybody to help with this. But yeah, an enormous burden. I think that's going to blindside a lot of taxpayers, and
Yeah.
particularly those who aren't represented. Um, it won't make sense to many people that there is more than one quarterly update for just one person.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. And I do understand that the penalty regime also
Oh,
works, that
yeah.
if you submitted, say you need to do two because you're a landlord and you're self-employed, if you submit one of them but not the other one, that's counted as a non-submission.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So watch out for that where you do have multiple submissions to
Yeah.
make. It's going to be important to recognize that you need to make them and make them.
Well,
Otherwise you
should
could
we
get
should
yourself in
we
trouble.
jump onto penalties then?
Yeah, go for it.
So
Yes.
I know that you've you've got really good relationship with the director of MTD at HMRC, Craig Ogilvie, and in all fairness to him, he is doing a great job with
Yes.
liaising with you on behalf of us as really as accountants.
Yeah.
And the penalties regime is something you've discussed. So um, I don't know a huge amount about the new penalties regime yet, but could you give us a bit of background on it if possible?
Sure. So the new penalty regime has been billed as a much fairer and clearer system for people. I think that there are some advantages to it, but again, I think it's something that's really going to catch people out. So,
Yeah.
as you know, if you miss your one submission a year at the moment, your tax return, if you're late by a day, then you would have a £100 penalty. And that penalty would then increase depending on how long you delay
Yeah.
to submit your tax return. Now, that's going to change for anybody within MTD. What's going to happen is when you miss a quarterly update, instead of having an instant fine, you have a penalty point instead. And that penalty point sits on your account until either you complete a period of compliance where you're not making any late submissions, or until you make another late submission, you get another penalty point. Now, when you get to 4 penalty points, you would have a financial penalty, and that financial penalty is £200. So if you miss all 4 of your quarterly updates for a year, you're going to be hit with a £200 penalty. Now, interestingly, I think aside from that is already double what you would experience with the
Mm.
one submission in January every year. You also have your final submission, that fifth your tax return at the end of the quarterly submissions. So if you're also late with that one, you will already have a £200 penalty because you're on 4 penalty points. You would then have another £200 penalty because you've missed your final submission. So for 1 year, you could be looking at £400 of penalties.
That's a
If
lot.
after that you continue to miss your quarterly updates, if you continue to not comply, you're going to be hit with a £200 penalty for every single submission you miss after that. So there is a big scope for this to get very
Yeah.
expensive very quickly for people that either don't realize or willingly don't comply. Um, Plus some changes to the way that penalties work for late
Yeah.
payments. Although those again are slightly less penal for people that delay only a small amount of time. They're worse for
Yeah.
people that delay payment of tax for a long time. So good for anybody that just has a hiccup.
Mm.
Bad for anybody that has a long period. I say long period, but a year really isn't a very long
It's
time,
not. No.
is it,
No.
for many
No.
people? So good for anybody that has that short period. Bad if you've gone 2 years burying your head in the sand.
And I guess we're going to have to look at whether the penalty point is per quarterly update per source of income as
So
well.
I know the answer to this.
Oh, good.
It is not per quarterly update. Your quarterly update is
Right.
counted as the sum of all of its parts.
Right.
So it needs to go in complete. So if you miss one part of it, that won't have been a quarterly update. You've missed some of it.
Right. So everyone's got
But
to
if
keep everything bang on up to date all of the time.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think it's 2 years is the penalty point life, isn't it? They
It's one,
stay. Is it 1 year?
1 year. It's
Right.
12 months. So
Okay.
as long as you complete then a period of compliance for a whole 12 months, everything's on time, then all of those penalty points are then scrapped and you start from zero again.
Oh, brilliant. All right. So, Robyn, obviously MTD, it's all about using MTD compliant software. So, to comply, do you have to keep record keeping software? So, do you need Xero, Sage, QuickBooks, those sort of programs?
That is false.
Oh,
You don't have to have record keeping software like that. You can carry on with a spreadsheet. That is
yay.
not the kind of thing that we're hearing, is it?
No,
It
no.
seems to be not out there very often, probably because a lot of the noise made for MTD is by software companies with a
Mm,
vested interest on telling people that the only way to deal with MTD is via their software. But no, not at all. You can carry on using a spreadsheet if that's what you want to do. What you would then need to do is link that spreadsheet with MTD compliant software, which is called bridging software.
right.
And there are various options available for bridging software. So TaxCalc is the
Oh,
bridging
brilliant.
software that I will be using. And there are lots of quite friendly
Mm,
client ones that I've been sending my clients to go and have a look at as well. And a few options are free.
oh, that's good.
So not to be glossed over the thought that we you do have a choice here.
Mm,
You can have a look at paid for bookkeeping software. that will bring in your bank feed, analyze your bank feed, and get you doing some proper accountancy bookkeeping. Or if you're already very confident with your current spreadsheet, then carry on doing that.
Good. So I know when the revenue letters went out, I was gobsmacked that it was almost implying you had to buy these £500 a year packages through software companies. And I was
Yeah,
trying to
it was
explain to a couple of my
something.
clients, they don't need it.
Oh,
You don't need to do that. I can use bridging software. I'll get you onto tax calc and we'll keep your fee down because you're not going to benefit from this big package. It was quite
exactly.
surprising.
It made me very angry when I saw those letters when my
Yeah.
husband's one dropped on the carpet. That was yeah, I saw red, and I did bring that up with Craig and his team that perhaps there were a few missed opportunities within that letter, particularly the thought that they didn't mention that you could talk to an agent as
Yeah.
well. And no mention of penalties. I could talk all day about what I didn't like about that letter. I mean,
Well,
there wasn't any red writing on it, so
no.
nobody's going to listen to it anyway. But yeah, it very much talked about commercial software. And I think in most people's eyes, commercial software is paid for software.
Yeah.
And actually, there are free options out there. Actually, there are free bookkeeping softwares out there as
Mm.
well. Although that's a whole nother ball game, isn't it? I wouldn't really be advising my clients to go and
No.
try something that hasn't been tried and tested by lots and lots of people. But in terms of keeping your spreadsheet and submitting via bridging software, it's a very viable option and one
Mm.
that we will be utilizing at LKA.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time I always say to clients, you get what you pay for with accounting and bookkeeping
Mm,
software. The ones that are free, they are no frills and you will get what you pay for. And quite
mhm.
often it creates more work than it's worth half the time. But for bridging software for MTD, I think it's a great idea.
I don't think that full accountancy software is right for everybody, and
No,
that's one of my main problems with MTD is that that message out there is the thought that everybody should and will benefit from going onto these systems. I'm not an accountant, I'm a tax advisor, so I think I see it from the client's point of view a lot of the time.
yeah,
I'm a spreadsheet girl. I will do a much better job of keeping a spreadsheet than I will of doing some complicated bookkeeping on any of the main providers in a lot of cases. And I can really sympathise with people feeling that that's the only option out there to
yeah.
go on to something that looks very complicated, that involves, oh no, a balance sheet. So, not a
Yes.
fan of
And
a balance sheet here.
oh, see, I'm the opposite. I think a balance sheet is exactly what you need. That financial snapshot in time tells us everything as accountants. I think Gabby would have something to say about that. If Gabby, you're watching this, put your comment
I,
below. Why is the balance sheet so important?
I'm very sorry for all the people that I upset saying that I don't like a balance
All
sheet.
the accountants out with pitchforks. But on the
Yeah.
topic of software, so if we've got, let's say, client does their quarterly updates throughout the year, can they then still submit their tax return through their government gateway like they always have been doing?
Well, this is false. That is
Oh, okay.
not going to be possible. The government gateway for anybody in MTD, mandated under MTD, will not be available. It's withdrawn for them. So that can provide a bit of a problem. Well, it will provide a bit of a problem
Yeah.
for a lot of people. And that means that the options are even more varied, actually, because you could have somebody that is on a bookkeeping software that also provides end of year submission. There are some options out there. So Zero, I believe Sage as well, and
Yeah.
QuickBooks all have that final submission. So they could do the whole thing through that software.
Mm.
You also have some softwares out there that don't offer a final tax return solution. So for landlords, I really like Hammock.
Yeah, I love Hamlet. That's
And
so good.
I make no secret that the demo that I had from them was really good, really nice to look at, but they don't have final submission capability. And the same if you're using that bridging software. So if you stay on a spreadsheet and use bridging software, you're then going to either have to find another type of software that allows you to do the final submission, and that's not going to be from the revenue. That's going to be a commercial company, whether that's a paid commercial company or one that's offering something for free at the moment, or that's where you are going to want an agent. So someone like myself and Tom that can assist you with your tax return. That at very least, if even if we're not helping with those quarterly updates, an accountant could help you
Yeah.
with that final submission. So it's really important that people understand the differences and what they're actually paying for when
Yeah.
they go onto these softwares, because uh, what they want to do may be limited by what they choose. So it's now's the time to talk about it so that they understand what they're signing up for, what they're paying for.
Yeah. And also with the accountancy packages that we all use and the software providers, I really do like that at the moment we've got a great variety. So with Zero, for example, I love using Zero, but if the client only needs the MTD filer for Zero, there is a partner package that's a lot lower in price than what is advertised online. So if you work for an accountant, it's cheaper. And also I've got clients where they're looking now at what they're going to do with their business bank account, and they're going, well, if I use NatWest, I can get free agent as a free
Yeah.
bolt on, and I can
Hmm.
run everything through there as well. So we're in a golden era, really. It's nice to see the software companies are actually now going to have to really start digging in to get, they need to start making it. Why do I stand out compared to the others? Which I think we've not really
Yeah.
had in the past. They were all very samey, weren't they?
Yeah, the competition is always a good thing, but it underlines that now's the time as a person affected by MTD or as an accountant in practice, now is the time to start thinking about what we're going to do, because there's now so many options. There's not
Yeah,
just that
there is.
one option.
Yeah,
I know for us, we tend to recommend Zero, but from the personal tax point of view, where some of my clients have gone and chosen software off their own back, a lot of them are looking at QuickBooks. And
yeah,
as a team, that means that we need to start being a bit more qualified at all the different options that are out there so that we
right.
can assist where we need to.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
rather be doing that now than in
yeah.
May next year.
Yeah, well, I remember the VAT MTD days, and for those of you old enough that remember the implementation of FRS 102, yeah, a lot of sleepless nights over that. It was a nightmare, but that's really good. So, well, here's a good one. We've covered penalties, so we're going to talk about a bit rental now, and I know that the
Hmm.
rental side is very contentious, and I think you're in the same boat as myself and a lot of others that we just genuinely really can't see the benefits of it. But if I own a rental property with someone else, can I report that rental income just on the whole lot, or do I need to do it on my bit, or do I need, like, how does it all work, Robyn?
Sure. So depends whether you own that property with somebody else or whether you own it as a sole owner. If you own the property as a sole owner, then you will have to report your full gross income and expenses in the
Right.
quarterly updates. But there is an easement to that for joint owners, because there was recognition that in some cases when you own a property jointly, the information isn't so readily available for all of those joint owners to be able to
Yeah.
make the submissions. So people who own jointly are able to just report their gross income from their property.
Okay.
Of course, we've got to remember that UK property would be one quarterly update. No matter how many UK properties you have, that's going to be one update, whereas foreign properties are going to be another quarterly
Right.
update. So just to remember that. And it's completely possible that you might have one property that's owned jointly and one property that's owned solely. So your quarterly update for that, because assuming they're both in the UK, would be a mishmash of
Right.
just the gross income and the gross income minus the expenses for the one that you own so solely. It's a bit messy, isn't it? And
Oh,
I
it's
think that
it's
that
very messy.
easement is a makes a little bit of a mockery of the thought that you're going to get loads of wonderful, helpful tax information, and the thought that it's going to help you keep up to date with things. Because how on earth does reporting just your gross income help with
No.
anything? It is just a tick box
Well, and
exercise.
as things happen throughout the year, it's just going to get more and more complicated. And we've all seen the videos of everyone saying, if you want to make fortune, transfer all your properties into limited companies, and they don't really explain all the consequences of that. It's just we're into a, like, you can't really find any good, solid background and detailed examples from the revenue at the moment. That's my bugbear. There isn't
Yeah.
enough out there, and I think they really need to put some more money into that. Really, so
Well, we've had the excellent question on MTD therapy in the last couple of days about the foreign income side of things, whether or
yeah,
not the foreign income is just one set of figures, or whether if you had, say, a foreign property in France and a property in Spain and property somewhere else in another jurisdiction, whether or not you actually have to do that separately. And the indication is it probably is separately. It's
Oof.
really difficult to find that information. I mean, I can understand why it would be separate because
Yeah,
when it pulls through to your final return, you probably do want it to be separate because your foreign tax credit is going to work differently depending on which jurisdiction that property is in. But yeah, more admin and to the point, it's just very difficult to find that information. There's nowhere really clear that says, yes, okay, you have some foreign income, some foreign property income. Please break these down into
yeah.
the country that's relevant. Yeah.
Do you think they've considered that at the revenue yet? Do you think that's on their radar? Do you just think they're kind of making it up as they go along at the moment? And oh, this is a problem. We need to fix that for the future.
I think that they must have considered it because they cannot build the testing without having knowing that the answer to that. So it must have been a thought going through the head. And actually, that's more frustrating, isn't it? That thought
Yeah,
process has happened. It's just not been being communicated very well. But there's definitely some things, and I think the gross income easement is one of those things where it wasn't thought about originally,
yeah,
and that people have gone to the revenue and shouted and said this is just not workable and that there has had to be a change because it wasn't really
yeah,
thought about in the first place. And I wish that every point that we brought up in this regard would work in the same way because I think the system would look completely different or
yeah.
maybe not even exist if
Well,
if we were,
we could
yeah.
keep hoping. But so my next one again on rental is if I sell my rental property and my sole trade turnover is below the threshold, then I don't need to do any quarterly submissions anymore. Is that right?
It depends on whether you have any other qualifying income. So
Right.
you may well cease either renting or cease a sole trade that was pushing you over the qualifying income threshold, which is the 50,000 for April 26 and the 30,000 for the year after, 20,000 for year after that. You may well manage to drop that qualifying income down because you've sold or ceased something. But if you still have any qualifying income, you are still going to have to do the quarterly submissions for 3 years at a minimum. So, in an extreme case, imagine that you had a very profitable or nicely gross incoming uh, rental property, and you are getting £40,000 of gross rent from that rental property, and you get £10,000 from your sole trade. You sell that rental property, now you've only got £10,000 from that sole trade, you are still going to have to do quarterly updates for 3 years for
That's
that.
again huge benefits to the revenue for that information, isn't there? They're going to really
Yeah.
benefit from that, aren't they?
Yep.
Right. Well, that's a new one on me.
Yep.
I'm just quite fortunate. I've made the decision. Anybody that says they've got foreign income, I will be referring them to you, quite honestly. So I'll leave it to
Okay,
the
that's the
tax
first I've heard
experts.
of that.
Yeah.
We'll see how I get on.
Yeah. I was
Okay,
good.
so you've now asked me enough questions. I'm going to ask you one back now.
Okay.
So let's change tact a bit. A CIS a construction industry scheme contractor,
Yeah.
will they need to comply with MTD? They will. Is that
They
true?
will. And do you know what I find quite shocking is if you Google that or you go on the revenue websites or you go on any of the governing body websites, there isn't really anybody or anything out there that says categorically, yes, they will. But if we apply the common sense rule, it is self employment income. It's, if it's over the turnover threshold, then yeah, you will have to, under CIS, do quarterly updates. So if anybody would like to point out the benefits of doing it for a CIS subby guy or girl, please put it in the comments below.
Okay, Tom, so I've got another question for you.
Yeah.
Can I have more than one agent helping me with MTD for ITSA?
Yes, you can. And I was actually having a read through this last night to make sure my understanding was right. So you can have more than one agent. And the great news is that they are limiting what those two agents can do. So you're going to have like a primary agent, and they can submit your tax return, they can do the MTD stuff and everything else. And then you can have a secondary agent, but they can't submit the final tax return. They can help you with the bookkeeping and they can see what's going on with MTD and everything else, but they cannot file that final tax return. And that's a huge advantage, I think, because in the past, we've always had this one agent concept. So having multiple agents, I work with fantastic bookkeepers, and it's going to be a huge relief to me that I'll be able to help them and work with them, and they can help me as well. And I forgot my point I was about to make then because I was talking about bookkeepers and how great they are. But yeah, with the agent stuff, actually, I'm going to try not to rant, but talking about MTD in the grand scheme of things, HMRC had a dedicated attack last year which lost them 47 million. We still do not have multi-factor authentication security on most agent accounts. Why don't we have that? We're doing MTD, but we don't have basic security. And I would say it's basic now because you set up anything else, you can set up an MFA with it, but the revenue isn't doing it. And I think if there's anyone watching this for the revenue, get that sorted.
Do you think they will?
I think they have to. I think that I haven't read it through fully yesterday, but Les in the MTD Therapy chat shared the ICAW comments about the 47 million, and the revenues had a bit of a dressing down, haven't they? Because they didn't share that information with MPs. They don't know if the Treasury was even aware. I think someone's in for a real rap across the knuckles on this because they've clearly not notified the right people. And if this is a significant security flaw, I don't see why it's an issue to get MFA. I just can't get my head around it. Why can't we have an app, an authentication app on our phone like we do with everything else to have security? So I can't see how they wouldn't do it in the next couple of years. I think it'd be very, very naive, really, if they
Probably
don't.
better money spent doing that than
Correct.
implementing
Yeah.
MTD, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be because I wonder how much of the 47 million that was stolen was because of poor security. And how many times are we seeing now? M&S has had a sophisticated attack. Harrods has had one. There's been a few recently, and yet the revenue, which has access to tens of billions,
Yeah.
has probably the weakest security systems in the country.
Yeah.
Baffling. Yeah. Anyway, rant over. Sorry, gone off topic there.
I think it's a good contrast to the issues that some of us face with contacting the revenue and, for example, needing to just request a copy of a letter to be resent to a client,
Yeah.
but being told no because you're not the authorized agent. And we've had a few of those kind of stories come out of the associated group with
Yeah.
MTD Therapy, the general tax chat, the thought that even though their IT systems are probably not very secure, trying to ask a sensible question that really
Yeah.
shouldn't have such a big gate in front of it, is totally impossible
Yeah.
at times because the computer says no. Maybe it would be nice to see that flip and see a bit more IT security and a bit more sensible thinking when it comes to actually sorting things out and taking initiative from HMRC side. That would
Yeah.
be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and at the moment, I know that they are advising agents that, due to the security attacks of last year, if there is any suspicious activity on your agent account, even if it's someone trying to access your agent account from a different IP address, they lock your agent account down and you lose access. So I think if we
Ouch.
don't have some improvements from the revenue as agents, we are so exposed,
Yeah.
and our clients are exposed, and the whole country is exposed. So yeah, it's not acceptable to me. I can't get my head around it. It just feels lazy and cheap, which is the
Craig, put a good word in for us, please.
well, I will write on behalf of everybody to Rachel Reeves to tell her to dip into her pockets to invest in proper security at the
Very
revenue.
important.
Yeah,
If it goes wrong, it's going to cost more.
it is. Yeah. So on the topic of accountants and agents and things like that. So if I'm Joe Public, is it okay because MTD, my accountant, is just going to do everything for me? I can just sit back and relax.
I really hope that that's going to be the case for the majority of people that are represented by agents. But I think at the moment that's probably false more than it is true. I think
Mm.
our industry is woefully unprepared,
Yeah,
considering that we're under a year away. The fact that we're doing a video like this, trying to get some more information out there. I think you've already mentioned that we're still hearing very, very basic questions at
yeah,
industry events. The questions like, is partnership income included, or are limited companies included? Questions around qualifying income. Now, there's no problem with having those questions, but the thought that our industry that is going to front this has those questions with such a
yeah,
small amount of time to go, it is, I think, very worrying. So I wouldn't bank on your accountant necessarily feeling confident about MTD. Certainly, if they haven't contacted you yet, then that would potentially make me
yeah.
think that you might need to assess your situation and
Mm.
make sure that you have a plan with them. So don't cut them out. Start that conversation with them. Obviously, I'd hope that most people are starting the conversation with their clients that way round, but there's never any problem with a client contacting their agent.
Mm.
But yeah, just understand that for us, this is all very new as well. I've been having to say to my clients, look, there are some aspects of this that I just can't give you an answer on at the moment. Pricing is one of them, and
Yeah,
not having access to absolutely all the software that I would like to use means that sometimes I can't price this up. I haven't tested. Yes, I'm about to put my husband into the testing and do a first test so that I can actually see how long everything takes. But at the moment, that's very difficult to estimate when we don't have ongoing experience of it. So
yeah,
it's new for us as well as for you. So just start that conversation now.
yeah. And I think I obviously haven't started the testing yet. I'm not sure I want to really, is the answer. And I'm also waiting for tax app. But I seem to recall months ago when TaxCalc did the original MTD one, was it back in February? And we had Rebecca
Anyway.
Bennyworth surname, Scotland surname wrong, sorry. I'm sure she said in that, and it's resided with me, it takes about 10 minutes per client or something.
Yeah, I think
And
she
that
said five. I will give her the
five.
benefit of the doubt on
Okay,
that. It takes
five. So
about
say
five.
5 minutes, but is that for each client per source of income, or is that each client in total?
I
Because
think
if you've got 300
yeah,
clients, 5 minutes per client is a lot.
it's a chunky bit of time. Yeah. So it's something that she's spoken about a lot and said that it's part of why she wants to encourage people to try and start that process now. You can sign the clients up now for next year. You don't have to sign them up for right now for the testing side of things. So if you have already done the 24/25 tax return and you already know that your client, or perhaps if we've got some people listening that are general taxpayers, if you already know that you are going to be mandated in April 26, you can start pressing those buttons now.
Yeah.
So some people choose to do that. I'm not loads keen on doing that because I think it's a stop-start process,
Yeah,
and
it is. Yeah.
actually that 5 minutes per client might be slightly quicker when I'm doing one after the other than it is to just do, oh, I've done this one, have I done that one, etc. But you're quite right. The volume there is the bit that's
Mm.
very tricky. 5 minutes per client doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about 300, or for us at LKA, we are expecting by the end of this season to have more like 700 clients. That's a lot of time. A lot of time that I'd rather be
Yeah.
doing something maybe more helpful, at least more interesting.
So 700 incorporations in the next 6 months then.
Of course, my 700 are not all coming under MTD, so maybe should clarify that. Thank goodness, I've got more like 40 to 50 that will be
Oh,
coming
that's
in
good.
the
Yeah.
first wave.
So, Robyn, one of the ones that I was a bit concerned about is, and I'm still not entirely sure on the answer, is if you're mandated to do MTD quarterly updates from April 26th, are accountants and clients going to have their 25, 26 tax returns submitted before the next quarterly update? So you imagine the period of April 26 and June 26. We've got a 3 month window to file those tax returns. I'm not entirely sure on that. I'm not sure I've seen anything confirmed, but do you have anything?
I really hope that that's not the case, but I think that needs a little bit more research from both of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't know the
And
answer to that.
yeah, if anybody does know, please drop us a
Well,
link.
what I do know is that the Q4 update has to be submitted before a final tax return
Yeah,
is done.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to do your 26, 27 tax return, for example. And if you've missed Q1, if you've missed Q2, you've missed Q3, you've missed Q4, you come to do your final tax return, you cannot do that without submitting a Q4. You have to do that very last one. It's not like, whoops, never mind, I'll just do one a
Yeah.
year still. You will at very least have to do the Q4.
And you'll be in the penalty points at that point, won't you?
Oh
For
yeah, you'll be in the penalty points by that point. So even though you will have had a penalty for missing the Q4, you can't just go, oh well, I've paid the penalty. That just means that I don't need to do it. You still need to do that one.
mm, that's a good food for thought. That one that could be quite a big. We've got to sign up 300 clients, let's say, in for MTD, and then having to file all those tax returns in that first 3 months. That's going to be a hell of a lot of work.
Hope not. Really
Yeah,
hope not.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's a good one. My last one for you, Robyn,
Okay.
is I think
Is it a good one?
this is a really good one because I think every accountant that is watching this right now will know this expression. So, is MTD going to be the click of a button?
Oh, it's not a good one. I don't like that question at all. I don't think so. So I think that maybe the actual submission of an update will be the case of that you click a button. Now that's the case with a tax return as it is, really. To actually submit a tax return, what do? I click a button. But of course, clicking a button doesn't show you all the things that have gone before that, and particularly with the release of professional conduct. From the big institutes
Mm,
recently, the guidance on professional conduct, it really gave some food for thought for agents to consider whether or not you can just click that button. And I would suggest that their
yeah.
advice is quite clear that actually we have professional responsibility, not only to feel that those figures are representative of our client's situation for that quarter. So not just that they are representative of that client in general, but that it gives a true picture for that quarter that's being submitted. It
Mm,
gives us some professional responsibility over any red flags in the information that the
yeah.
client has given us, or perhaps that the client is giving us access to on their software. So certainly you cannot, as a professional, particularly if you are a member of one of the institutes that have released this guidance, which both of us are, um, you cannot just click that button. You have responsibility over those figures. The guidance is not hugely clear in some areas. So, for example, it does mention that the timely submission overrides most thoughts of if
Mm,
that information is correct or not, but it doesn't give us any examples to go, okay, well, this is where the line is drawn. On that
yeah.
puts us in a little bit of a tricky position, and I hope that some more information will be released to help members to understand their professional responsibilities
Because
over
there
the
is a
tax figures.
temptation to say, well, there's no penalty for submitting a nil return or nil quarterly update because quarter four is it's all cumulative, isn't
The
it? So
yeah.
it corrects itself each quarter and updates. But I understand why some accountants would say there's no penalties, it'll be fine. It's just estimates. We'll just submit it. But yeah, with
So
this professional conduct thing,
yeah. It,
it's
it
a
makes
lot
it
more
very
prep.
clear that a nil return is absolutely unacceptable
Yeah,
under
correct.
under MTD. And that's because a nil return would really, and this is part of actually something that Craig's communicated directly. So we have direct communication from the revenue to say that the nil returns really would indicate that no digital record keeping is being
Yeah.
made, and therefore you could expose your client or you could expose yourself to
Mm,
a fine for not keeping digital records. And I
yeah.
understand that that fine is about £3,000. So that would definitely be like waving at the revenue.
Yeah, big time.
Um, yeah, so is it just a click of a button? No, remember that as in our industry, we also need to make sure that we have engagement letters in place that are appropriate. Um, Generally speaking, the process for most people is going to be a communication with the client. The client then gives the information. We then have to review the information. We then the professional guidelines then make it clear that we should be going back to the client with questions on that information if anything is not particularly clear. The client then comes back with the answers. We process the answers. We then have to go back to the client for agreement to submit.
Mm.
Again, that was not a point brilliantly clear in the guidance. However, I think looking at the guidance, you'd be a brave professional to not get
Yeah,
client agreement before submission.
that's right.
So there we go. We've already gone from, oh, it's a click of a button to a number of steps that will have to
Yeah.
be taken. And those steps are very similar to the steps that I take to do a full tax return anyway.
Mm.
And we're talking about quarterly. So unfortunately, the thought that this is going to take 2 seconds a client is not a thing in
No,
my opinion.
I'm treating it the same as I would do preparing a VAT return.
Mm,
You want to make sure it is as accurate as could possibly be, and because although errors and mistakes do happen in life,
yeah,
you try your best to eliminate all of those. So I will be treating every MTD quarterly update as if it is a VAT return. I'll be doing checklists. I'll be making sure that everything is, up to my level of standard. And I'm not saying the end of year will be a push of a button, certainly, but it will make the end of year process a lot easier if you get things right going through those 4 quarters. But
certainly.
I'm going to really struggle explaining to my clients that they're not going to benefit from MTD at all whatsoever. There is no benefit to them in some circumstances. But if you want me to do the MTD quarterly updates, I'm going to
Oh,
charge
sure.
you for this
Yeah.
level of care. And that is quite difficult to explain.
I have to say, I've had a lot of these conversations with my clients over the last couple of months. And actually, let's talk about that for a second, because this click of a button has already started for me and for many
Yeah.
others, because I'm already having to spend that time that I I would like to say I can't charge for. I'm well aware that I could charge my clients for these conversations, but I find it a bit repugnant
It doesn't
to
feel right,
think
does
that
it?
it does not feel right, and
No.
I'm not comfortable charging my clients to for these conversations. That is my personal
Mm.
opinion. So I have been spending 9 times out of 10, we're talking about a 20 to 30-minute
Yeah.
conversation with each of my clients. Again, that's 50 people I'm going through. That's
Yeah.
just this year. Next year, I've got more like 100. So I've got another set of people next year. It's an
Mm.
enormous amount of time. It's been great because it's really nice to talk to my clients and get a feel for what they want to do and have that plan in place. But again, I think I maybe have spoken to two that may feel that they are happy with the change.
Yeah.
The rest just shake their heads and say, "Why are we doing this?"
Yeah.
And I say, "I know. I feel exactly the same. And if it's any consolation, this is exactly why we're having this conversation now. We're going
Yeah.
to have that plan in place, and I want them to know that I'm not." In this for the money, which is also being sold to accountants that look at all the money you can make, look at the amazing
Yeah.
opportunity.
I'm really
I
not happy
don't
with that.
like that message.
No.
I don't like
And
that message.
I'm unhappy with the software providers, if I'm brutally honest, because I'd love to know the proportion of, let's take the big ones, Sage, QuickBooks, Zero, Free Agent. I've used those examples. Of their license numbers, how many are held by accountants? And we have been for years promoting their products and helping clients get onto their products. And the minute MTD comes in, all you see online now is how easy it is for Joe Blogs on the street that can do their personal tax return, their bookkeeping, MTD filing. You don't need an accountant. You can just push a button.
When
It
that message is
almost,
coming from the software and from
yeah,
HMRC,
it's just,
it's a bit maddening.
it is really. And again, I'm a bit of a rant, disappointed really that the governing bodies aren't holding the software providers and HMRC accountable for that,
Mm,
because we all work extremely hard to meet really high professional standards. And it's almost like we're forgetting all of that
yeah.
because we can all do it at a push of a button.
Yeah, I fully agree. And the software companies are often the ones touting the line that it is just a click of a button.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So that doesn't
Yeah.
really help us, does it? When we have to have these conversations with our
No.
clients to say,
No.
sorry, it isn't just a click of a button for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but such is the landscape, and such is why we have such a strength of opinion against MTD
Mm.
in just in our industry, or that I am finding. Maybe it's because I'm standing up and saying that that's how I feel. That I'm finding that there's more and more people coming and saying, "Yeah, I feel exactly the
Yeah.
same."
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are very fed up with being sold that it's something awesome when we just don't feel it is.
Yeah, bit of honesty would have been nice. I think, like we talked about earlier, if they'd said we're changing the tax regime, we're going to take quarterly
Exactly.
estimates as payments on account, it would have been a
Yeah,
different landscape. Would have been totally different.
exactly. Yeah.
But I don't know. Should we? I think we're probably going to have to wrap it up, don't you? I
Yeah.
think everyone's probably sat listening to my rants and your helpful information for quite a long period of time.
They've listened to my rants for long enough. And if they would like to listen to more of my rants, then MTD Therapy is the place to come. And
Definitely.
and Tom's rants.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I've really enjoyed this, very informative. And thank you, Robyn, for all of your amazing advice. It's been fantastic. And thank you again for setting up the MTD Therapy group. And for anyone that doesn't know about the MTD Therapy group, as accountants, it's fantastic. And I'll let Robyn talk a little bit about that now. So, Robyn, tell us all about your MTD Therapy group.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, I wanted to speak a little bit more about the MTD therapy group because it's been such an awesome thing for me, and it's been nice over the last few months to hear what a help it's been to others. So, back in February, there was a very lively tax calc webinar on MTD, which was very, very helpful. Tax calc webinars always are. But it did show that there was a strength of feeling within our industry that showed that not everybody is quite as enthusiastic about MTD as HMRC and the software providers are. I saw a little bit of red on on that webinar and took to the comments and decided that I would see whether anybody wanted to talk separately about MTD without the noise from HMRC and the software companies. And from there, I was expecting maybe 5 people to join me, and within 5 minutes, we had 80 in the group.
Yeah.
We're now a group of over 330 accountants, tax advisors, and a few people in between there. And the group is extremely active every day, talking about different aspects of MTD. It's created a really lovely community of
Mm,
people who share the information that they're finding.
yeah.
There's often people sharing a new article or a new webinar or thoughts on different things that they have seen so that we have a different perspective from different, and we can look at MTD from different angles. And of course, there's the opportunity to question everybody in the group to find more information, and that's always encouraged. Now, the group has obviously been born from this thought that not everybody's happy with MTD, but something really important to me about the group is that everybody is welcome. We do have some supporters of MTD, for lack of a better word, people that are actively testing and who think that it's a great idea. And as much as I generally disagree with some of their opinions, I think that it's great that we have both or all sets of voices within the group so that we can really examine the subject from all angles. Certainly, in some ways, being able to hear from people who think it's great has changed my opinion on some aspects of MTD, and I think that that's gone both ways too, so that we
Yeah.
just have more information feels very powerful. Um, Tom, you've said to me that it's been a useful group for
It
you.
has,
I hope
yeah.
that
I've
that is
really
the
enjoyed it.
case.
It's the support network, I think. And when you are feeling, I feel stupid all the time about these MTD questions. You can just pop it in the chat, and no one judges you. You get an answer. You can, work really closely with people on this, and we are all kind of building our picture up towards when it comes out. And I
Exactly.
love the fact that people that joined a month or two ago asking questions and now answering questions for new members that are coming in. And a little fact that I absolutely love about this MTD group is that at the 30th of April 2025, you had more members in your MTD therapy WhatsApp group than HMRC had agents testing MTD. And I think that is a fantastic statistic. So
I
well
think
done.
that's my favorite stat as well. And I think that that's my intention. I would like to keep that going. Let's have more in this group than testing MTD. But yeah, it's just been a lovely open forum for people to come
Mm,
and discuss a lot of the time the concerns. We've had a
yeah.
lot of conversation about how to practically deal with MTD, for everything from how to segment your clients, how different softwares work. We do have a few software voices within the group.
Yeah.
TaxCalc and Hammock are quite helpful within in the group. So a bit of information in there that you wouldn't get elsewhere, as well as just the opportunity to hear what others think. Within the MTD therapy group, there are also some splinter groups as well, like a general tax chat for anybody
Mm,
can join. There's been a lot of discussion on there about money laundering process, and lots of again, general tax chat, as it says on the
Yeah.
tin,
Yesterday it was CGT, wasn't
and
it?
a
It was
social.
the big topic.
Yeah, so we go through lots. They're all the splinter groups are very active. I do suggest that anyone joining is prepared to mute the group unless you absolutely love the sound of your phone going off at all
Yeah.
times of the day. But that's the beauty of it, is that it's been something where it's a genuinely nice group of people, and the information coming out from that group, I think, is something that, as I've said, you may not find easy to find elsewhere.
Yeah.
Um, we've been able to ask Craig at HMRC a few direct questions, that is pinned to the group at the moment that you can have access to. We've worked through questions such as recently foreign property income, whether
Yeah.
it's one submission or a lot of submissions, broken down by jurisdiction. Things that are not necessarily easy to find out there are coming out of this group. And I've got to say a big thank you to everybody contributing to it, whether you're contributing lots or whether you're sitting in the background and voting in the polls. I can't tell you how much the group has helped me in my MTD journey, and just to get out there and realize that there are other people has been really eye-opening, and I'm very, very proud of what we've accomplished as a group, and may it continue.
And
So please join us.
you are the unofficial MTD champion for accountants, I think. That's the title that we're all going to give you, the champion for accountants on MTD. And when they abolish it eventually, I'm sure there'll be a knighthood for you. Damehood, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's see. I think I think that would be lovely, and it would be would it be a great victory? I don't know. It would be definitely nice to be heard,
Yeah.
as a group, and I think at very least, if we can't be heard by the big people, we can be heard by each other, and
Yeah.
that's very therapeutic, which is why it's called MTD therapy. So
And
join
on that
us.
note, thank you very much, Robyn. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Tom.
And bye
Bye
bye.
bye.